Howdy, howdy! Sudevil here, and welcome to our fifth anti-cav, dwarf anti-cav video, where we're really looking at the dwarf armor-piercing units and their performance against cav. This was, again, originally an idea that came up in the comments, and has led to a fantastic line of testing the Dowie against cavalry. Now we're going to go on to chariots, and I'm going to update my dwarf army review for multiplayer after the Vampire Coast drops, and I can do a little bit of testing on that side. This test was really good. We got two more tests to run to complete this sort of battery of tests. We're testing today the Chaos Chariot, which is a non-armor piercing anti-infantry chariot. And of course we're going to test it against miners, dwarf warriors with great weapons, longbeards with great weapons, three units that are all very poor in infantry engagements, and I honestly thought they didn't have a really good use in the game, and turns out they are just like, they really are analogous to the dwarf version of cheap spears and cheap halberds. They are exactly that. They really aren't in infantry. I wish they would give them like a small anti-large bonus, so it would be very clear to players playing them that they're really meant for anti-large, but is what it is. Anyways, this is going to be spreadsheet heavy work. If you are not interested in that, I'll let a lot of you are, I'm going to put a summary at the end. And I got a great comment about putting the summaries, trying to make it more obvious where the summary is. So I've actually gone into the spreadsheet and I made a big sign that says summary. So if you're on your phone or something, just scroll until you see summary. I made it big enough that you literally should be able to see it anywhere. And then hopefully that'll make it easy to get to the summary of this stuff, so you can skip through all the spreadsheet work and all the kind of discussion of the stats and the details. For those of you who love the stats and the details in the spreadsheet work, we are going to get going. So this test, did it as per normal on the unit testing fields, 100 by 100, with obviously the no lord restrictions testing mod. So I have two mods installed to do this, and really the interesting part about this is the miners, just the unit of miners by themselves, can beat a unit of Chaos Chariots. They don't beat them very often, but I'll show you the test. Maybe they'll win, maybe they won't, and I'll show you the final testing. So I have been using two miners in all the other tests, because one set of miners cannot win that, but I was able to use one set of miners against these Chaos Chariots. So I'll show you the test, and then we will go to the spreadsheet to look at what the data gave us. And this is a really nice set of data again. Now, against each of these sort of categories of units, that the data has been quite different and very interesting, and hopefully I'll do a video summarizing all of the testing at the end. So again, I brought the dwarves back here so they'd be very similar to all the other tests. And the chariots are just going to plow right through them. Then they're going to come around back. Now, in some of the tests, the chariots will try and make multiple charges against the miners, because they have an advantage. They're just going to sit there and fight. Now, this does take a long time. Sometimes the dwarfs win. No, the miners will win if they kill one of these chariots. And it looks like they think they're winning now. So if they kill one of these chariots, they'll be able to take all three. But they got to actually physically destroy one of the units to be able to win. And they haven't done. Oh, they've got one. So maybe they're going to do another. I don't know. It looks really, really close. So they think they're winning, but it is extremely close. But for a unit of 325 against a unit of 750, this is fantastic. Yeah, it looks like the Dowie they're both wavering. It's super close, and the Dowie lose in a close defeat. But you could see how close that was. Now they won. We'll actually go look at the data and we'll chat about it there. But I think that's just fantastic. Now I understand, for those of you watching, okay, this is not how you're going to see chariots utilized in an online game. I get it. Players do things differently. But this testing, I want to make the testing as robust and repeatable as possible, which is why I set the test up this way, so that I can look at the same set of testing 2 years from now if I want to, and see if still the same rules apply. But that said, I mean, the miners did pretty darn good. So we'll go to the spreadsheet, and turns out they actually pulled a ton of gold. 270 gold total. So for those of you who don't know how this goes, basically I see what time the units collided, 59 minutes 54 seconds, when the battle ended, 55 minutes 27 seconds, how long the battle took. So the battle took an average of 214 seconds, and then I compare the finishing hit points divided by the final hit points multiplied by the starting cost in gold, and that allows me to give a gold differential. How much value did the unit win in that encounter? Then I look at how long did it take them to win that value to go to gold per minute, and then I look at the gold ratio, which is how much did I have to pay to get that gold. So they won 28% of the time, so 2 out of 7, which definitely isn't bad. Pulled 270 gold, which is excellent. I mean, there's only 75 gold per minute, but pretty damn good for a miner. A miner I really believe to be basically entirely useless. Not even a month ago, or 6 weeks, or 2 months ago. I can't remember when this stuff came through, but this has been absolutely fantastic. So miners pull good value against the non-armor piercing chariot. And then remember, this chariot does not cause fear or terror, non-armor piercing, and the miners do excellent. 270 gold they pulled. So let's go and pick our dwarf warriors with great weapons, and we'll see how they do. And see kind of sort of what the end values are, and just so you can see how to set the test up. Again, I want to make this repeatable, so maybe you're watching this video in 2021 and you want to see how the DAOE of 2021 compared to the DAOE of 2018. You can see now fairly quickly the dwarf warriors will transfer from losing to winning, and then they'll really start to dig into these chariots. Now, some of the tests, the chariots, there they killed one, the chariots will do this, exactly what they're doing here, and then they'll come back for a second charge. I sort of let it go, because it's not the biggest deal in the world, except when they kind of wander around too much, that takes forever, but the dwarf warriors really win this fight pretty handily, and reasonably quickly. So you can see, I mean, they have less than half health left, but we'll see exactly how much health they end up with. If we go down here, so they indeed won all 7 fights. They finished with 31% of their total health, and they pulled 321 gold. So even more than the miners, and they pulled it at 146 gold per minute, so basically twice as fast. And you can look at the DPS as 28.7 damage per minute, damage per second versus 15.1 damage per second. So a pretty significant jump when you put the dwarf warriors in there. So let's go and see what the basic Longbeard does. Again, we put the basic Longbeard in here. It isn't our anti-armor or armor-piercing unit. We put the basic Longbeard in here as sort of an anchor, as a comparative unit for testing, and that was also something that came in the comments, which is very, very good. So just look at the basic Longbeard. Basic Longbeard is one of the best units that DAOE have. They're my favorite unit in the game, because because, like I said before, they're old, they're grumbly, they can still swing an axe. So, alright, we'll get them fighting these chariots. And of course, because they have no armor piercing and they do not have very much weapon damage, and their melee attack is pretty low, it will take a very long time for this battle to resolve. But they hold their own reasonably well. And this is one of the battles we saw. I saw the chariots. Yeah, they do this quite a bit. They'll do that twice if they can. Pull in 2 charges, but and I don't have them. Again, I did not let them accept the charge there. Just took off guard mode. I wanted them to attack, so they forego their charge defense against large. Again, just to make the testing repeatable. That's the only reason I did it like that. But yeah, you can see this test takes a pretty long time to get this done, but they do win, and they're kind of finishing with half health, more than half health actually. So we'll go see what that looks like. Of course, they win all 7, and they finish with 324 gold, so even more than the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. Not much. They don't pull it as fast at 123 gold per minute. but their DPS is less. So the Dwarf Warriors, they finish that in 137 seconds, and it takes the Longbeards 159 seconds. So the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons are significantly better, I would say, than the Longbeards, even though they pull the same amount of value because they pull it quite a bit faster. Like 20 seconds is a long time in this game. So the next unit we had is our lowly Longbeards with great weapons. And this is the absolute worst Dowie unit in an infantry fight. Well, maybe Slayers might be worse, but they should be good, but they are so poor in infantry fights. But turns out they're not bad at all in fights against cavalry. How are they going to do up against them Chaos Chariots? Same cost exactly. They're both 750 gold. So, and this is the reason we're looking at this is because the units, the Chaos Chariots, along with a lot of the Cav, and this is what the observation was, is they have really low melee defense. So their sustained stats are actually pretty poor. And 150. And you know, Chaos Chariot is something you will see from time to time. You might see the Gore Beast, which is why we're going to show that one, but we'll get in there for the fight. And you can see the Chaos Chariots are never winning. The Longbeards with great weapons just win right off the get, and you can see they accelerate how badly they're beating these Chaos Chariots. Like, they beat them quite badly, and they do it in you know, just over a minute. Have way more than half health left. So we'll go, whoops. Okay, we'll go over here, and let's get to the Longbeards with great weapons. All right. So yeah, they finished with 70% of their health left. Got the job done in 74 seconds. Really, really good. More than twice as fast as the regular Longbeards. Pulled 372 gold at 313 gold per minute. So this just an outstanding performance by the Longbeards with great weapons. Pulled the most gold at the fastest rate so far. Absolutely fantastic. Very good job with them. So let's go grab our Slayers, our dedicated anti-large unit here. Yeah, they only lost 8 units. Really, really good. So we'll grab our Slayers at 900 gold, and we'll put them up against the Chariots. And see how that goes there. All right. The Slayers. And the Slayers kill things very fast, but you can see our Slayers are just taking a massive amount of damage. Massive amount of damage in that charge. You know, they get the job done. Unfortunately it quit really fast. So we'll actually go to the spreadsheet and see what they finished at. They get the job done. They lose a ton of health. And we see here that they get the job done in 43 seconds, so faster than our Longbeards with great weapons. But they only pull 133 gold. And here's the kicker. They only pull it at 201 gold per minute. So in this case, our Longbeards with great weapons are better than Slayers. Like, objectively better than Slayers in almost every way. The only way Slayers are better is they do kill them faster at 43. They get the job done in 43 seconds as opposed to 74. But against Chariots, our Longbeards with great weapons are really strong, like excellent. And of course they have immune to psychology, so all the Chariots that have fear and terror are not. I can't wait to test them against the Gore Beast Chariots next. We'll see how they do. Hopefully they do really well, because this is pretty impressive that the Longbeards with great weapons beat the Slayers in an anti-large role, in the terms of how much value they generated and how fast they generated that value. Fantastic. So the next and last unit is our Giant Slayers. And we know Giant Slayers, they kill so fast. They're such an amazing unit. So we'll get the Giant Slayers, and we'll see how fast can they kill that Chaos Chariot. And the Chaos Chariot has 90 armor, remember. That's one of the reasons why it's quite a nice test, because it does have a lot of armor. 90 armor, yeah, 90 armor, 22 melee attack, 28 melee defense, 40 weapon strength. So we'll get our Giant Slayers in there, and we'll get the fight going. And this fight goes really, really fast. You can see just how fast they take the health away, and boom, gone. Less than 30 seconds, and they have a little more than half health left. So let's go and see what they end up pulling. So they actually finish with 62% of their health left. Still not as good as the Longbeards with great weapons. Still don't pull. They only pull 200 gold, but they pull it at 672 gold per minute. So yeah, that's pretty good. They had one fight where they pulled 1,300 gold per minute. Like, Giant Slayers are crazy. They're so good. So fast at killing, rather. Like, because 22 seconds, that is one runesmith's Rune of Wrath and Rune. Not even the Master Rune of Wrath and Rune. Rune of Wrath and Rune, 18 seconds, slow it down, Chariot's gone. They just delete it. But really expensive, 1,250 to get that kind of performance, as opposed to a miner who pulls 300 gold, it's only 325. And if you pull 2 miners after a Chariot, I don't know. So you do like 2 miners, 3 miners, 2 miners. It's, you just send them after the Chariot and let them run after the damn thing. If they want to spend the whole game mowing down your miners while the rest of your troops go, c'est la vie. But really, really fast. 200 gold per minute, or 200 gold total though at 672 gold per minute, and they only finished with 62%. So what does that mean? We're gonna get to the summary. So what does that mean? So what I did was I pulled down all the stats, and I think what I'll try and do is, if I remember, I will pull all the stats down for all of them. But in summary, our Longbeards with great weapons are just the best against Chariots without armor piercing. So armored Chariots, like the Chaos Chariot, it's anti-infantry but not armor piercing. This would be good against black coaches, against all kinds of things, like Chariots that just don't have armor piercing. The Longbeards with great weapons are outstanding. They pulled 372 gold worth of value, and they were number 2 at 313. They beat the regular Slayers, but they didn't beat the Giant Slayers. Giant Slayers are amazing at how fast they kill things, but their DPS was good, 47 DPS. Not bad at all. And here's the kicker. They finished with the most hit points. So one of the real nice things about the Longbeards with great weapons in this test is they finished with 70% of their hit points, the most out of any unit. So they will be, in general, the most capable compared to their starting hit points after that fight is done. So really, really good. And kind of second, really, this is where it gets sort of hard to say. I would say your Dwarf Warriors are pretty good value. They come in really high, and your miners are good. Your miners pulled 271 gold. I mean, it takes 75 gold per minute, but they have a really high gold ratio. It only costs 325 to get that 271, which is really, really good. But who pulls up second? It really starts to depend on your tastes and how you play. But I would say it is clear. This is clear. The Longbeards with great weapons are the best Dowie unit in this test against a Chariot without armor piercing. Very, very good value in this test, and just outstanding. And they beat Slayers and Giant Slayers for the total value they pull, and they beat Slayers in the gold per minute, which is just outstanding. So when you look at how they finish, you can sort of make your own decisions as to the units you would want to take to be ready for Chariots, particularly Chariots with armor piercing. But I would say having a couple Longbeards with great weapons in your back line, if you're getting ready to play a faction that might bring Chariots, like Chaos, like the High Elves, like the Dark Elves, these are some factions that may bring Chariots. You can be ready. Well, even the Tomb Kings may bring Chariots. So if you're worried about Chariots, non-armor piercing Chariots in your backline, Longbeards with great weapons are definitely the unit to bring. Have a couple of them in your backline. They do outperform Slayers. Longbeards, Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, and Miners. They perform, I would say, objectively the best. Although, if you have a very specific purpose, you want to have that really hard alpha strike where you're not worried about getting whittled down by ranged units, you can bring your Giant Slayers, hit that Rune of Wrath and Rune, and delete whatever it is that you want to delete. Because the Giant Slayers kill so fast, but they're high risk. They have no defense against any kind of missile units, so you got to be really careful. when you have giant slayers and on the field. Like even slayers have like a 20% resistance to missiles, and your dragonback slayers have 20% resistance to missiles, plus they have a 20% physical resistance. So giant slayers have none of that, so they're very risky if you're worried about a faction that might have any kind of range that can sort of pick away at them. But yeah, Longbeards with great weapons, fantastic. Very happy to see our much maligned Longbeards with great weapons performing at such a high level. You know, just really happy for for these guys. I've been hating them I've been not hating them. I've been just so upset at how weak they've been against other infantry for so long, and I have so much testings to show how poor they are in the frontline engagement. To see them perform at such a high level in the backline is heartening. And against Chariots, done. I mean, if yeah, I'll have to remember to go into my chaos builds and make sure that I have 2 units of Longbeards in my back line, Longbeards with great weapons in my back line, to be ready for Chaos Chariots. Maybe a couple of miners, and you know, you think that's a really good combination, because you bring, this is 1075 worth of gold. Is it better than a Slayer? I don't know, but it's kind of in between a Slayer and a Dragonback Slayer for this combination. But the thing is, your Slayers and your Dragonback Slayers are vulnerable to missiles a little bit compared to your Longbeards with great weapons. Your Longbeards with great weapons do have charge defense against large. They do have immune to psychology, not that your Slayers matter, but they do encourage your other units. Like, this is a pretty good pairing. The more that I see it, the more that I like it. A miner and a Longbeard for your backline cavalry and chariot defense, outstanding. Not to say your Slayers are bad. Boy, the Slayers kill fast, and we saw in some of the tests already how good they are in certain situations. And the giant Slayers are ridiculous. They are absolutely ridiculous, but they are a super high risk reward unit. So anyways, would love to hear from you. Love to hear your thoughts on this test. I'm really excited to play against Chariots. It's as stupid as that sounds. I am genuinely looking forward to playing against Chariots, so that I can bring my Longbeards with great weapons and miners and just let them go to town and take the Chariots apart. Like, the Chariots don't sort of get caught up in your Longbeards, because your Longbeards must have pretty good mass now. You know, they don't get so caught up in the miners, but nor do they get real caught up in the Slayers, but they do get caught up in the Longbeards. And now I don't know if that's a mass equation or if it's just that their spacing is very tight. But anyways, definitely want to hear from you, hear your thoughts on the Chariots. The next test I'm going to do, and the last test I'm going to do, is against the Gorbeast. Is it the Gorbeast Chariot? What is it? Gorbeast Chariot at 1200, because it is armor piercing, it is anti-infantry, and it does cause fear. So this is I think going to be a good representative chariot. It only has 32 melee defense. Now, you know, just looking at some other chariots, the Beastmen can bring chariots. What kind of chariots? I know they'll bring them. Maybe it's their lords they bring on chariots. It could be. Could be them. Could be they bring their lords on chariot mounts. So I don't see any specific chariots here, unless I'm just missing it. But Razor Gore Chariot, there it is, 1100, and causes fear, but it's only got 28 melee defense. It's anti-infantry, and it's armor piercing. So this isn't quite as good as the Gorbeast Chariot, so should be a good example. And look at some of the other chariots. I wonder, you know, maybe we consider the Skaven. Well, the video's over, by the way. I'm just rambling. Doomwheel is kind of like a chariot. Maybe. Yeah, melee defense 32. You know, there's anti-infantry, armor piercing. They're sort of like a chariot. So, you know, I think this will be an interesting... And they do magic damage and armor piercing. They cause terror and fear. Like, this is... A Doomwheel is something that a Longbeard with great weapons should be very, very good against. And if we look at the High Elves, and I know they do have a chariot down here somewhere. The Lithomar Chariot. Again, this is where your They are anti-infantry, but they don't have armor piercing. This is exactly where your Longbeards with great weapons would crush Elithamar chariots, or get a very, very good value off of them, in total. And the vampire counts, like, you never see the black coach, but I think the black coach is something akin to a chariot, Yeah, it is armor piercing, anti-infantry, causes terror, 10 melee defense. So it has some of those sort of traits to them, and lizardmen don't have chariots. The Tomb Kings have chariots. I wonder what their chariots are like if they have armor piercing. Skeleton chariot, nope, not armor piercing. Anti-infantry though. You're again something that clearly Longbeards with great weapons would do outstanding against. So very interesting. Anyways, love to hear from you. And love those comments. The comments have inspired this entire series of testing. And, I always ask for comments. I always say that doing this hobby of mine, Warhammer, Total War, the YouTube is kind of a hobby on a hobby. And the best part of this YouTube hobby is the comments for me. It is the funnest part of doing this whole thing, is getting comments and getting interesting testing and getting interesting ideas, or just having someone come by and say hello. Like, that's great too. They're all wonderful. So anyways, looking forward to hearing from you. And with that said, I will see you soon.